Hello, this video is part of a series where I review laptops that are great for most students from the perspective of a student. Today I have an HP Envy x360 that has a 3rd generation Ryzen processor that cost me about $800. We will talk about its greatest features, its price, I/O, and its limitations, again from the perspective of a student, so let's get started. Before I begin, let's clarify a couple things. The version I have has a 15-inch screen, 16GB of RAM, 512GB of storage, and a Ryzen 5 4000 series processor. I purchased this laptop late last year because I meant to use it as my main computer, but then my sister wanted a computer, so I passed it down to her. But anyways, I just wanted to clarify that this current configuration is unavailable. Just a few months ago, Ryzen released new 5000 series processors, which explains why HP discontinued the previous processors from their lineup. However, the changes were minimal, so I will talk about them as I review this laptop. Just know that anything I say about the processing power or the battery life will only get better with the new model. Now let's transition to talking about use cases. First of all, if you're a student who likes to draw or write on their notes, it is more than possible to do this on this machine. The main reason why is because you get a touchscreen. And better yet, you can fold it over into tablet mode to make drawing on this computer a comfortable experience. More so, having a touchscreen is great because we're so used to clicking on things on our phone that having a laptop where we can do the same just makes sense, right? Now, let's say you're not much of a drawer and you don't care about having that functionality and you're more of a person who likes to surf the web on Chrome and open up some professional applications for your engineering or design class. Well, you can do that on here too. To achieve all of that, you're going to want a great CPU, and the included Ryzen CPU, and especially the new one that's going to be in the new version, is going to allow you to do all the basic things that you need. On top of that, the integrated graphics have improved significantly over the last couple of years to the point where playing Rocket League, GTA 5, FIFA, you can tell I'm biased, is pretty simple on these computers at 60 FPS, especially if you're the kind of student to want to game after a long day of schoolwork. Now, one thing to note is that you can get 2 processors for this laptop, either the Intel processor or the Ryzen processor. Personally, I'm going to recommend Ryzen because you're going to get better battery life and processing power, but the Intel version is a teensy bit cheaper on HP's website. And in comparison to Intel processors, Ryzen consumes less power, so this leads to a little over 11 hours of battery life, which is freaking ridiculous. It's not as great as the 13-inch MacBook Air that I reviewed last week, but since it has a 15-inch screen, we're going to let them get away with that. I know that great processing power and extended battery life is really important to students who are on the go and need to get stuff done, and this computer checks both boxes. I've taken this laptop around with me, and honestly, it does excellently, especially because it has that freaking long battery life. I'm able to video edit, code, and have dozens of tabs open with no drop in performance. Now that I mentioned moving the laptop around, we should talk about portability. 15 inches is pretty big.
That's what she said!
Oh my lord. At least for me, I found the laptop to be a little bit too large for my needs. I'm a lot more comfortable with a 13-inch MacBook Air. Carrying around 4.1 pounds is kind of bothersome. Luckily, there is a 14-inch option that was released earlier this year in case you want something that's a little lighter and the same in terms of processing power. Moving on, let's talk about ports, and everything I say here is going to be the same for the new 15-inch version as well. So on the left side of the computer, you're going to get your barrel port and just a USB-A, which is great so you can connect most of your external devices, and then your power button, of course. And on the right side, you're going to get what I think is very great for most students, which is the HDMI port. This is great because when you want to connect your computer to a projector for presentations, it's very simple to do this without having to have any dongles. You know, people who embrace that dongle life may be fine with that, but why spend more money, you know, if you don't need to, right? Then there's another USB-A again, and another great thing, which is a USB-C. This is not Thunderbolt, and in case you don't know what Thunderbolt is, you likely do not need it, but it will have most of the functionality that you want. For example, it has DisplayPort, so you can connect an external monitor if you use USB for that. Yeah, again, you have the HDMI for the external monitor, and then you are going to have a little switch, and this is honestly epic for privacy, where you can turn off your camera, like it's a physical, like disconnect the power to the camera, so that you won't have to be paranoid about people watching you in case that's something you're worried about. I forgot to mention a couple things here. So there's a 3.5mm jack, and then you have an SD card slot, which if you're into video editing or if you're into photo editing, that'll be great to be able to have that. Honestly, this combination of ports is harder to come by nowadays, especially with these newer higher end models like the Dell XPS and MacBooks, which are taking them away in favor of like Thunderbolt ports. So it's definitely great to see this nowadays. If you're enjoying so far, please hit the bell to be notified when I drop a new video, because next week I will be reviewing a Dell Inspiron with an 11th generation Intel processor, which I don't want you to miss out on, especially if HP is not your cup of tea. Now let's move on to talking about price. I know that as a student, the biggest concern is the price of the laptop, and I want to set you up with something that won't crack the bank. Currently on HP's website, the price is $800 for a Ryzen 5 5000 series processor, 8GB of RAM, and 256GB of storage. And on Best Buy's website, who was running a sale, it was $700 for the same configuration. The price is kind of high, if I'm being honest, especially since my version had more RAM and more storage for the same price. But don't worry, this is normal. Best Buy and HP have rotating sales all the time, so you will be able to find it a lot cheaper if you are just patient. Now, as always, I recommend getting 16GB of RAM and 512GB of storage. I say this because I don't think 256GB of storage will cut it nowadays, especially with a lot of the files and applications you're going to have to download and keep on your hard drive. And 8GB of RAM is just not sufficient, especially with the amount of RAM that Chrome can take up. Taking those changes into consideration, the price rises about $140 for a total of $940. Again, I know it's high, but with a little patience and waiting for those rotating sales, it should easily drop below $800, which if you ask me is quite the steal. Additionally, if you're willing to sacrifice some processing power and downgrade to 4 cores, you can buy the Intel version, which typically undercuts the Ryzen version in price. Now, let's talk about the screen and the overall experience. The screen is 1080p, which is honestly great if all you intend to do is consume media and just work on projects. The color accuracy is not too great, so if you're a video editor or you're photo editing or you like to draw, you may want to consider a different option. The screen brightness is only 250 nits, which honestly is kind of low, especially if you're going to be working in brightly lit environments, like a coffee shop where there's a direct window and sunlight hitting your screen. If you are going to be in brightly lit environments, there is a 400 nit option, which you can upgrade if you are ordering straight from HP. The keyboard is great and reliable, and it has a fingerprint sensor right here, which honestly is a great security feature, because it means that if you're paranoid of someone, somehow finding a way to enter your password, that you won't be able to lose any of the information that you have on your laptop. For my Zoom students, as you can tell, this webcam isn't that great. It's only 720p, so I am going to recommend that you get a separate dedicated webcam that is 1080p. As for the audio, well, you can judge for yourself. Overall, my verdict is that this computer is going to be great for most students. If you are going to computer science and want to code, you can do it easily on here. If you're going to become an engineer and need to open up big applications, again, you're going to be able to do it on here. And for the average student who's going into more of a field where you just need to do a lot of essay writing and or project work with Office 365, you will be able to do it reliably on this computer without any drops in performance. And it's honestly a great upgrade, especially if you're accustomed to having a Chromebook or a school-issued computer that you normally use. The build quality of this machine is excellent. It has an aluminum body, it's really reliable, and honestly, if you're transitioning, especially if you're transitioning into college, this computer should last you 4 years and more easily. So if you're a student who wants a lot of performance, reliability for the next 4 years, this is a laptop you should be buying. If you enjoyed, please drop a like down below and subscribe to my channel. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments section. And until next time, adios.